So I have a problem. I have a short box full of comics that have shown up here at the house from Skybound. They've been sending these books to me, and I've been so busy that I haven't been able to do any type of giveaways, but we are going to do one right now. We're basically going to kill two birds with one stone. In this video, I'm going to respond to some questions, comments that have been left on previous videos or sent to me via direct message. And as I go through those, I'm going to sprinkle in some trivia questions for you all. All you have to do to win a bundle of books is to basically respond to the trivia questions, thus leaving a substantive comment behind. I'm randomly going to be picking winners from those comments. And so I have stuff in here like Void Rivals, Transformers, Ghost Machine, Dracula, Cobra Commander, Duke. If you name it from Image Skybound, I probably have it in this box and you could be a winner. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into some of your questions and comments that have been left on previous videos. There's a video I dropped in which I highlighted the most purchased comics, and I don't remember if it was for the month or for the year, to be honest with you, but the person commented, "Is it safe to say that ASM 300 is probably the most homage cover of all time?" I don't have any definitive data that I can refer to, but I feel that this person is spot on. It seems like every single month there is a homage to ASM 300 somewhere out there in the world that I see on social media. So I'm just going to say yes. If you have seen any data out there as you've, been on social media, been on the internet, if you see anything that demonstrates what is the most homage cover out there, please let me know. But for right now, I am going to say it is ASM 300. And the person that commented this was Finn. Finn commented that. So on a previous video that I did, there was a comment from TMX. And this was a video in which I spoke about Robert Kirkman basically cheating one of his collaborators out of some money again, because it seems like this guy has a history of doing that. TMX comments, "He's not wrong. Way easier to sell with one owner. Also, way easier to profit when you don't have to pay a rightful owner their share. Give me 100% and I'll make it up to you. Never. Deal." That's the comment that he left. And again, it appears that Robert Kirkman has basically cheated one of his fellow collaborators out of an opportunity. I think he's now settled out of court with this person because he clearly did wrong. But I do love his Inner John universe. I will tell you that what he is doing over there with Transformers, Void Rivals, and G.I. Joe is incredible. There's another comment here. Let me see. Actually, let's just sprinkle in one of these things. So one of the trivia questions I have for you is, what is the last DC key that I purchased? It does not get any easier than that, considering the book is hanging on the wall behind me. So that is the very first trivia question that I am throwing out. I think that the others will actually be easier than that. Just saying. I think the rest are going to be easier. So Carlos asked this question on a video that I released where I highlighted that CBCS was taking aim at CGC.
Have you guys seen this?
And I basically said, finally, they are getting aggressive. His comment here is, "Do you think CGC's recent price drop and free member submission is their response to this?" I do not. I do not think that CGC did this as a response to CBCS. And I say that because I personally do not feel that CGC views CBCS as a real competitor. I don't think that they would make this move in response to this, especially considering CBCS took a more aggressive stance after CGC had already lowered their price and allowed for free membership submissions. So I don't think it was done in response. I don't think it's done related to that at all. I think that CGC is trying to win some goodwill. This price decrease comes on the heels of the scandal in which an outside party was basically switching books, right? But it actually happened prior to the second scandal which was an inside job where a husband and wife team were employees of CGC, basically running a scam in-house. So potentially CGC knew that this second thing was going to break. Like the first one they knew about, the second one they knew that potentially, because they filed an injunction in the courts, was going to get out in the public domain, and maybe they were trying to take a preemptive strike by dropping prices. And this was a little unexpected, to be honest with you. I don't think anyone saw a price decrease happening from any of the third-party grading companies, just because generally they have been taking price increases, and we thought that that was going to continue. So that's my response to Carlos's question. Maybe you disagree, but that was my thought. So on that same video, there was another comment from Supercam, and Supercam's comment was, "Bravo to CBCS. I got this email they sent me recently, and my first thought was, dang, that's a hard dig at CGC. I like both companies. I've sent books to them both. Hopefully CGC will learn." Hopefully CGC will indeed learn, not just from the first scandal, but also from the second scandal, which technically was the first scandal, but that might be too confusing without some kind of diagram. But yes, fingers crossed that not just CGC, but all the grading companies actually learn that protocols, processes, procedures need to be put in place. Trust but verify. There's all kinds of, I think, learnings that can be gleaned from these situations. Fingers crossed that there are not more to come. So the next trivia question I will ask is about you. Next one's about you. I told you this was going to be easy. What is your favorite cover of all time? If you could only highlight one comic as your favorite cover, what would that cover be? Again, I have a bunch of books. I'm trying to give them away. I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you guys. Someone asked me a question recently about my collector's journey, and I'll be honest with you, I don't quite know what a collector's journey actually is, but I will try to talk about my journey with with comics specifically. So I first started collecting comics back in the 90s, and I was in junior high going into high school, and I was buying any and everything that was Marvel, was Spider-Man, and X-Men for that matter. Cameron Hodge was the villain at the time, I think, when it came to Uncanny X-Men. But I was a big Jim Lee fan, and so buying a ton of Marvel books. But when Image was formed, I moved over and started buying a bunch of Image books as well. I became a fan of the founders of Image. I have a lot of those original Image titles still in my collection to this day that I bought back in the day in Michigan, specifically in Ferndale, Michigan. That's where my comic shop was at the time. But I was out of comics relatively quickly upon entering high school. I still bought books here and there, but generally I discovered girls and realized that girls and comics didn't quite mix. So I was out of comics until around 2005, 2006. When I came back in, at the time I was living in Maryland, and I was buying comics down in Waldorf, Maryland. But I was in the hobby for about a year then, and then was out again for a long time until around 2017. 2017, the end into 2018, I came back with a vengeance into the hobby, and I think that this has been my longest stint with the hobby. This most recent one, and fingers crossed it will continue for a while moving forward. We'll see what happens with that. Next trivia question. Name 3 comics that you have recently read and enjoyed. 3 comics that you've recently read and enjoyed. I don't care whether it was digital, doesn't matter whether it was indie or a major publisher, does not matter. Sound off in the comment section and let me know what you've read. 3 of them. 3 comics have to be listed there. All right. Getting back into this, I did an interview with a guy that is doing a documentary on whether comic book shops can survive, and someone responded on that video, and I wanted to read this one. The person says, person's name is Jeff. Jeff says, just some thoughts. I can tell you from owning 2 of the largest comic book stores in the 80s and 90s what part of the problem is. Its inability to know inventory control and ordering. Its inability to know how many copies of a book to order. I can't tell you how many stores would order 100 copies of a book and meanwhile only 30 copies would sell. There are rules in how to order, but I would say in most cases it does not work. Here's the problem. If you order 100 copies of a book and only 50 copies sell, well, you haven't made any profit because your profit is sitting on the wall. If you sell 75 copies, maybe you pay part of your bills, but putting money in your pocket is still in the distance. And he goes on to make some additional comments, but I think he's spot on that's one of the challenges is inventory management. You know, comic shops are anticipating what the demand will be for a book, but they don't really know what the demand is. And one of the things that can help them, of course, is pull boxes. If people have pull boxes where a certain book has been requested, they know generally that they can count on those sales, and it becomes a question, well, how many more do I want to get to put on the shelf? It's a tough gig being a comic shop owner, to be honest with you, because if you order too many, you waste money. And if you don't order enough, then your customers feel like you aren't taking care of them and they may go and shop somewhere else. You're essentially leaving money on the table. It's tough. It is tough, I would imagine, for them to anticipate what demand will be for a comic. But that's also kind of sort of what they signed up for, right? So fingers crossed that they get better with time and maybe they have more hits than they have misses. But I will defer to comic shop owners to try to make the right call with that. But I could see that as being a challenge. So there's a question here from DJ, and his question is, Reggie, is it more important for you to get the book you want in a low grade or just hold off until you can afford a 9.8? I am a 9.8 snob except for certain books like my Hulk 181, which is a 9.0, but I want your opinion on this. And essentially what I said to DJ is that I try to buy the best possible book that I can afford and not regret the decision. So for example, I personally believe that a modern comic should be a 9.8. That's generally how I feel, generally, right? But if that 9.8 is a modern book and it's like $1,000 or $2,000, then that probably isn't a book that I'm going to buy, just because I struggle with paying that amount of money for a book when I could spend that on a Silver Age comic, which is the focus of my collection, right? So it's a little bit of a balance there. If I have a really expensive Silver Age comic, I would love to have it in a 9.8, but generally those books are incredibly expensive. So I may have to settle for a 3.0, a 6.0, an 8.0, something like that. But if I settle, I want to make sure that when I spend that, whatever it is, 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, that I don't regret that I don't regret not saving up to buy a higher grade. And I don't want to regret getting the book and then not liking the appearance of the comic. And so it's difficult to give it a blanket statement, but what I try to do is to think about what the book is and how much the book means to me. And am I okay with this grade of this book? Does it present well? Does that satisfy me? Does that make me happy that I'm going to spend that amount of money for this grade of book? And sometimes a 3.0 is not a bad grade. It's not a bad grade at all for certain books. Now, if it were a modern book of 3.0, maybe not that, but a Silver Age, really expensive comic, 3.0, perfectly fine. 6.0, perfectly fine, right? So I think it really comes down to the collector. It comes down to how much money they want to spend, what the book is, how much the book means to them. I think there are variables at play, and hopefully I've articulated my position just a little bit on that. So the last question that I will read here, last trivia question I should say, is rank the publishers out there. So you have a couple of publishers, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, and we will put indies in the 5th place. Rank them from best to worst in your opinion in terms of what you enjoy. And when it comes to indies, if you want to call out multiple indies, have at it. If you just want to put indies as a group, that's okay too, but rank them. Marvel, Image, DC, Dark Horse, and the Indies. Rank them down in the comment section. So there you have basically 4 trivia questions I've sprinkled into this. Doesn't really matter what your answer is, except for the one where there is actually a real definitive answer. But I'm trying to give the books away. And if you are in North America, you are eligible for this giveaway. All you have to do is sound off in the comment section. I'm randomly going to pick some people in a couple of days, and then I will comment on your comment that you are the winner. You will then need to send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. Screen name, government name, mailing address. I will bundle up the books. Technically, they're already bundled up, so I will put the label on them and send that out to you. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that as well. Good luck.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art, or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master, the one that's more than a rapper, the one that's an educator, the one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts, he's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan, straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations, synergy and combination.